So these are the top 10 scariest horror films according to me. This is a super subjective list, so I'm sure yours will be completely different, and you will probably super agree with me or super disagree with me with a lot of these. Some are a little just personal to my experience, so I'll get into those if that comes up. But starting off, I just have a few honorable mentions. Kind of these are more, they got me during my developmental years, I guess. The Visit, when it first came out, I saw it in theaters, and the crawl space scene wrecked me. It was just so sudden and out of nowhere that it messed me up for a little bit. I remember it messing me up for a little bit. 2013's Evil Dead. I just wasn't expecting the the amount of scares in it. I think I was used to the Evil Dead's kind of slapstick, more like comedy horror, but it just went full horror. And then the probably the least scariest now is Scream One, the intro scene where she's screaming for her parents, and her windpipe's broken and she can't they don't hear her, and they come out and she's hanging. I remember I watched that way too young, and that stuck with me for forever. So those are just a few that I had to mention that have always stuck with me. Okay, so starting off our list at number 10, we have 1974's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and just some reasons why it deserves this spot on the list. The most glaring one, I think, being the lack of conventional soundtrack. Very few songs are actually used for the soundtrack of this film, most of them being non diegetic soundscapes comprised of metal scraping sounds, animal screaming sounds, and a lap steel guitar, which sort of add a almost snuff film aspect to it. And that's also sort of a product of its time too. The film grain, it just seems like we're watching something that we shouldn't be watching almost. Another thing is unexpected character deaths. Now, it's no secret that characters die in horror films in gruesome ways all the time, yet this film has a way of making them feel sudden and abrupt, and it doesn't really revel in the kills that much, which adds sort of a cold, casual angle that builds on the terror. And Marilyn Burns' performance in this as the final girl is just so terrifying. She gives such a convincing performance in this. Coming in at number 9, I have 2026's Undertone. This is sort of a hot take, I admit. This is more just personal theater experience, I believe, but I'll get into that in a second. I do want to compliment its sound design, though. Undertone relies heavily on its sound design. I mean, that was basically the selling pitch for the film. A lot of tension driven from the audio based scares, which builds on the horror of the unknown, causing the viewer to kind of fill in the blanks as needed. And the finale of the film feels like a swelling orchestra. So many noises and panic led to just an overwhelming finale sequence. The single location causes the setting to have sort of a claustrophobic feel, causing the recording sessions to be her only glimpse, and return our only glimpse into the outside world and the only sense of safety that she has. And for the theater experience, I went to a 3 o'clock matinee. I sat in the very back corner, and it was a completely empty theater, and it was so loud, and I was by myself, and I was so scared. And the last probably 20 minutes, as the finale was going crazy, and just in your face the whole time, I was tweaking out so hard. So I think that carries it a lot, because I don't think if I watched it at home it would not be that scary. I don't think, but just that, a culmination of all of that just made it. So I had to get out of there. It was so scary. At number 8, I have more of a obvious one, 2012 Sinister, because science says so. But only half joking with that. The film having the ability to hold a viewer's heart rate as high as it does, which is the way that statistic is measured, has to be some indicator of its infamousy or its terror. But personally, the reels Ethan Hawke's character watches are real Super 8 films, and that adds sort of a layer of legitimacy for me, I feel like, and it makes them feel real and palpable, going back to sort of the snuff films, more like a found footage style without fully committing to the found footage style. And while watching, I feel kind of a level of tension coming from how vulnerable Ethan Hawke is watching, um, which adds sort of a fourth wall break in a way. Like, I'm a scared guy watching a film about a scared guy watching a film, almost feeling as if I should be as nervous as he is watching it, if that makes sense. And just the lawnmower scene in general speaks for itself. It's so sudden and horrific. It's probably one of the most obvious picks on here. Coming at number 7, I have 2022's Incantation. There's something so menacing about the Mother Buddha entity. Its parasitic nature appears as a supernatural sickness. There's also an entire village dedicated to worshiping and satiating the deity. The way it infects really works for me, which brings me into my next point, which is the chant you were told is to ward off the evil spirits actually does the exact opposite. The finale of the film comes clean to inform you that you have witnessed something you should not have been witnessing, and you'll be cursed now, which is basically just ultra bad luck, but still. And the finale does some really cool visual tricks to play with your eyes while speaking directly to you, the viewer, and it's super personal, if that makes sense. It's directly talking to the watcher, the viewer, which I think is really cool. At number 6, I have 2014's It Follows. There's a lot of factors that make this one really unsettling for me. One is just the unknown creature's origin. Part of the horror of the film It Follows is the mystery of the entity. We don't really know its motives or how it came to be, almost eldritch in nature. And the entity is just a non-stop, always closing the distance threat. The simplicity of its rules keeps your focus on the danger. And instead of having a convoluted do's and don'ts list, it's just simply something is always coming for you, and if it reaches you, it will kill you. That's just so menacing. And the fact that you cannot see its true form, it's just a mimic almost, it's just always got me. And just such a small detail, but the inclusion of different types of tech spanning decades gives the film a bit of a surreal dream feeling, or I guess in this case, a nightmare. But there's no set. There's like flip phones. There's like old Coke cans. It's just you can't really pinpoint when exactly this film takes place. And I think that's a super cool visual decision. And coming at number 5, I have 2024 Smile 2. A big point for Smile 2 I have is the creature design. I've always been a fan of the lollipop demon, as they call it. A monster that's so uncanny that it's still kind of etched into our minds from the first Smile film. Having you almost watching this film with bated breath as to when he's going to show himself, and I think it's perfect that he doesn't show himself till the end. And even when he does show himself, it's not it's different enough to scare you all over again because he does not look the same as the first one. It's a reality warping entity which you can never let your guard down, much like Pennywise from It. The Smile Demon does not have to wait until nightfall like most creatures do. Anytime, anywhere, anything can be an illusion. There's no comfort in crowds. He can be literally anywhere, which I think is very scary. And there's so many jump scares in the Smile films, which I'm usually not a fan of normally, but Smile 2 leaves my heart racing after the scare, making it feel less like a cheap scare and more like an earned one, weirdly. And while writing this script, I just noticed how many parasitic horror entity films I have on this top 10 list, so maybe that's something I'm personally terrified of. And coming in at number 4, I could see this being one of the more hot takes. I have 2022's Nope. A lot of things really freaked me out about this one. One, the reveal that the extra dimensional threat in Nope is a single organic entity is a terrifying reveal for me. The creature reacting more like a starving animal rather than a traditional, more advanced society aliens that we're accustomed to when it comes to flying saucers. And a more specific scene that gets me is the digestion scene. A mixture of wonder and awe from the innocent bystanders, and the dime turn claustrophobic horror of them being eaten by something they had no knowledge of just always makes my skin crawl. Just sitting in the theater, I remember having chills watching that scene. And speaking of that, I remember the feeling I had in the theater watching Gordy the Chimp stare at me for what felt like minutes on end. The uneasiness is so palpable and effective that it alone would cause this film to make the list. It's something so primal that I fear, and all the Gordy shots just made me so uncomfortable moving in my seat. And it's such a nice parallel to Jean Jacket with the themes of the film. This movie just rocks, and Gordy is so scary. And breaking into our top 3, I have 2008's The Strangers. Whatever type of horror Smile 2 is, The Strangers is the exact opposite. The slow, quiet style of The Strangers film is a driving factor for its success. An overwhelming sense of dread lingers over the entire runtime, feeling more like a slow burn thriller rather than a traditional horror, yet I don't think that's a negative. The killers appear behind characters, and instead of loud, tension breaking jump scares, they just sort of slip back into shadow. Which leads me to my next point. The killers are toying with our protagonists, and it is evident the killers are able to attack and kill them at any moment, yet they continue to terrorize their victims further, building upon the hopelessness of the situation. With every move the protagonists make, it seems the killers are multiple steps ahead. They seem to always have just the upper hand. They have the numbers, they have the patience, and the ending is perhaps one of the bleakest finales in the genre. The "Why are you doing this to us? Because you were home" is a gut wrenching reveal, showing us how truly random and tragic these events are. At number two, I have 2026's Obsession, the newest entry on the list today, yet still the scariest film I've seen in a while. Obsession leans very heavily on its uncanny imagery, so many instances of unnatural movements, and that just really trigger that fear of things that are slightly off. And speaking of unnatural movements, the walking backwards scene absolutely floored me. I haven't had that sort of reaction in the theater since probably the gory scene that I mentioned earlier in Nope. So unexpected, so eerie, it just caught me completely off guard. It's insanely effective. The use of darkness and shadow gives the film an extra layer of mystique, making the viewer kind of search out the darkness for the scares. And perhaps the scariest part is the mental deterioration of Nikki. The thought of her being a prisoner in her own mind the entire film and being controlled by something else, something that sort of stirs in the back of your mind the entire film. It's sort of just an extra layer of tragedy and terror that just envelops the entire film. And coming at number one, my all time favorite, scariest movie for me is 2018's Hereditary. The family dynamic of Hereditary is absolutely miserable, and everything about this is absolutely miserable. There's so much dysfunction that by the time that the thing, the head thing happens, it seems as if they were already at a sort of breaking point before that. And as a viewer, you are also in that headspace as well, and it's just, oh my god, it's so miserable. The family seemingly having no real choice with everything too. Everything being orchestrated by their grandmother's cult makes it even more hopeless. They truly did not have a fighting chance. The odds were always against them. And when it comes to the scares, none are as effective as these, I think. Some very light jump scares here and there, but the horror comes from the atmosphere that they've built. It's such a palpable sense of sadness that by the time the actual scary scenes get there, it's just twice as effective for me. This is just an all-time favorite. I watch it every year in October. It scares me every single time. It's nothing's better than it. I love this movie so much.